Okay, so our next tool that we're going to talk about here is going to be a combination. Again, we've got drills, which we'll call these drill drivers usually because you can drill a hole and drive a screw. And then these are going to be called impact drivers. We will really never use these to drill a hole. They are only to drive in screws into wood. So drills for drilling holes, drivers for driving screws. First thing to always talk about here is our PPE. We want to make sure we've got our safety glasses on. Whether we are drilling a hole or driving a fastener, we can always have things flying up. We need to protect those eyes. If you would like hearing protection, as with anything in the shop, you are welcome to use that. But then the bigger thing is going to be loose clothing again. Anything that is spinning has that potential to wrap itself up in your clothing, your hair, jewelry, and that's never a good thing. So when we are starting out, let's say we're starting out with drilling a hole, we're always going to need to choose a bit and attach it in the tool. So if I've got a drill bit here, the drill bit is going to go in this chuck, and then I tighten it by just spinning that chuck. I need to make sure that the drill bit is nice and centered. I need to make sure that it is all the way tight. You can hear that clicking sound there, and that the drill bit then doesn't wobble. So you can see that it's nice and straight. That's what I need to see when I'm using a drill. There's lots of different drill bits we use. We might have just a normal, we call this a twist drill. It's for drilling holes in pretty much anything we want to. Here we've got an example of a stepped drill bit that can be used to drill a hole with this Kreg jig. But again, most of the time we might just be drilling a normal hole with a twist drill. So put it in there, tightened it down. I've got a battery installed. My drill bit doesn't have any cracks, no pieces missing, anything like that. We're good to go. When we are drilling holes, we need to make sure that our workpiece is secured. If it's part of a wall, it's secure enough as it is. If we've got a smaller workpiece, we're going to need to make sure we either put it in a vise or clamp it to something else. So I'm going to start here just by putting this piece of wood in my vise, tightening it down so it can't move. And then when we're drilling a hole, we just need to make sure that whatever's behind that, where that drill bit is going to come out, is not going to be a problem. If we are drilling into a wall in our house, we want to make sure that there's no electrical lines or plumbing lines behind there. In this class, if we are drilling a hole in a board, we can't have our hand back there. There can't be any other tools or objects back there. That's going to be a big problem. And then when we actually start to drill, make sure that we are holding that drill with two hands, nice and secure. We're feeding that drill bit in, slowly. We're putting a little bit of pressure on there because it is cutting the wood. It needs a little bit of pressure, but we're not trying to push the drill straight through the workpiece. And then we need to keep that drill bit straight. Once we start, we can't be moving it around or those drill bits will break off. So let's go ahead and look at that. I'm going to put my drill bit where it needs to be. I'm going to, actually I should check these. I'm in the drill setting and I'm at speed 2. I'm going to actually slow it down to speed 1. This is a little bit bigger drill bit. I don't need that faster speed. Put my drill bit there, make sure I'm in forward, and I'm going to start drilling. On these drills, this trigger is not just an on-off switch. I can start it slowly or faster. If I'm using a bigger drill bit, it makes sense to go a little slower. I don't need to go the full speed. The smaller the drill bit, the faster you need to go. But with a bigger drill bit like this, pretty slow. Like I said, we need to be pressing even pressure, nothing crazy here. We'll work straight through. You can see we've got a little bit of tear on the other end. If you want that to look nice, you can always clamp some board to the back of it and make sure that doesn't happen. We might also have the chance to use the drill presses. Same thing is going to apply there, although you have the ability to push down a lot more with that drill press. And so that'll make using bigger bits a lot easier where you need to press down a lot harder. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about here is our drivers. So when we're using our drivers, we need to make sure that we've got the correct driver bits installed. We are going to be using T25 bits almost exclusively in this shop. And the way this works, you should just be able to take that bit, push it straight in, and it'll click. Then it won't come out. The way you take it out is you pull on this little black collar and then remove the bit at the same time. Sometimes that takes two hands. You can set it down, pull with one hand, pull it out with the other. and then put it back in, just push it in. Some drivers require you to pull the collar out to put it into, these do not. Okay, now, the next part here is probably the one that I want to make sure I talk about the most. When we are driving a screw, we have to hold the screw somehow. The tendency is to want to do something like this, to hold my screw right there and to drive right here. The problem is what's going to happen if this slips. If I'm holding this and my drill slips, it's going to go right into my hand. That's not a sharp bit, which means it's going to hurt a lot. So we don't ever want to do that. That can do a lot of damage to our hand if we're doing it like that. When we are driving a screw, I still want both hands touching the driver. So one hand is on the trigger, on the handle, the other is pinching the screw onto the bit and touching the driver. That way I know my hands are together, and if I slip, both of my hands are going together. I'm not going to stab myself with that drill bit. From there, I'm going to start my screw where I want to go. Provide, just a second here, table lockdown. Provide pressure. It's not going to want to screw in just if you're not pushing in. You got to push in, and this way of gripping it makes sure that I can push pretty hard. I'm going to hold this tool steady, make sure that my wrists don't want to get twisted, and I'm going to pull the trigger. I can start out nice and slow. Once that is started, I might move my hand back here to get it completely out of the way, and then I can keep driving. So I just drive the screw in like that. I'm going to hold my screw, put it on the wood, start nice and slow, and then push. Just like with the drill, this is a variable speed trigger. I can start slow, and I can speed up. I don't need to ever do that. Make sure you're putting enough pressure on that, because if you don't, it can want to pop out. So we need to make sure we're always keeping that pressure to keep the drill bit into the drill. As you can see here, we want to make sure, just like with the drill bit, that there's nothing behind our board, because if it pops out the other end, we don't want that to happen. But if it does, we want to make sure our hand's not back there. That's going to be a bad day. And then you can see here what I have done wrong on these two, because I was paying attention to my video. We don't want that to happen. We do not want our screws to be driven past the face of the board. We want them to be just a tiny bit below, where it's not sticking out, but it's not way inside there like that. That's not the correct depth. So it needs to look like that when you're done. I need to do a better job when I'm videoing, because I went way too far. So just to kind of re-emphasize a few key things here. When we're using drills and drivers, we always need our safety glasses. We need to make sure that any dangly loose things are tucked away and secured. When we're drilling, both hands on the drill so that we don't have our hand in the way. Make sure we know what is behind that, so if it comes through, nothing's in the way. And with our driver, again, both hands on the driver. Even the hand that's holding that screw needs to stay on the driver so that you've got a secure place to put that hand that's not in the way. Then you can put that screw in.